Welcome to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey. It is day 3. They have not kicked us off the air yet. I've managed to not curse, managed to not get an FCC fine yet, so I think that is a huge win for everybody. Welcome to day 3. I am so excited to be joined by a very good friend who is a writer, a comedian. He's performed all over the world, and he's also the co-owner of the Laughing Tap Comedy Club in Milwaukee. Yesterday I had Joe Zepecki on, and he wanted to be introduced as one of his many titles was Bearded American, and you put his beard to so much shame.
Yeah, I do.
You do. I don't know many people with a beard like yours. If you can watch the live stream, which we have on As Goes Wisconsin, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and you can see Greg Bach's beard, it is something to behold. I will say that.
It's something to hold on to.
That's true. That is also true.
If you're falling from a building, you just hold on to my beard and I will save you.
It's like, what is it? We just call you Rapunzel or just Repuns? What's the male version of Rapunzel?
I'll take Rapunz. I like that. I like that. It's the worst rap name ever. Rapunz is the worst rap name ever.
Little Rapunz.
Little Rapunzie.
Little Rapunzel. Well, you've also besides being a comedian, which we have that in common. Although I would not ever say that I've done as much stand-up as you, but I do fancy myself as a somewhat funny person. But you've also dabbled in politics.
Yes, I have.
And campaigns, and so you are not coming totally blind to trying to talk about politics and campaigns with us today. But give a little more background on besides telling jokes, some of your credentials.
Well, let's see here. I worked in campaigning for a few years. I worked on the Obama election in 2008 as a field organizer in the great city of West Dallas. Actually, I worked in West Dallas. I was in charge of TOSA, and 53.8% of the vote in 2008. Just going to put that out there for Obama. Obama won TOSA. Okay, come on now. I
feel like TOSA is pretty much more blue now. Maybe it wasn't then, but now.
No. In 2000, in 2000, they won 100% for George.
Wow.
100%. So. We took that as a massive. I took that as a massive victory, and with the people I was working with, all the volunteers were great. And then I got into local races, and I was the campaign manager for a mayoral race in Racine, and then started working for the now former mayor John Dickert in Racine, and then kind of got out of the game. Went into the private sector to make all that big money.
Well, cool. So you know a thing or two about, at least especially from your days with Obama. Did you go to the DNC in 2008?
No. I was at the ground here in Milwaukee.
Okay, so they didn't ship you out. You had too much work to do.
I never even got to meet either of them. I got to take people to here. You're gonna go meet the Obamas, and they're like, you can't meet them. I'm like, oh, okay.
Why? Well, I asked that because there is an update on the battle for who will get the 2024 RNC, Milwaukee or Nashville. Have you been to Nashville?
I have been to Nashville. It is absolutely gorgeous. I'm a huge fan of country music, so for me it was like heaven. But it's a very different city than anyone who's lived in Nashville for more than 10 years. It's nothing like it used to be. And then the people who live there for 20 years, it's not. It's just this ever evolving city. And I'm surprised that Nashville put their name in there, but then again, I'm surprised Milwaukee put their name in there, but for what we're going to talk about, it makes sense. I shake my fist at the sky.
Yeah. So for the summary of what's evolved so far. So we've had drama in Milwaukee as far as, it's not red, it's not blue, it's green. There's a lot of business owners and tourists visit Milwaukee. There's a lot of people who really want the RNC to come. There's a lot of people who don't want the RNC to come to Milwaukee. So that has been some drama playing out there. But ultimately, the Common Council voted on the framework they approved it. They approved that the framework that the RNC. Yeah. And at first they didn't know if there was going to happen. But we voted. We're there, right? We put our name in the hat. Mm-hmm. So Nashville has not voted yet.
No.
And a report by Bill Glauber and Allison Durr over at the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel said that it looks like they may not even have the votes in their, what they call their common council is called the Metro Council. And so there was one council member saying that he doesn't think there's enough votes to pass it. And the mayor of Nashville said he has basically serious concerns about what resources would be required to host either party's convention. So now there is a chance that the RNC will come to Milwaukee, potentially just by default.
Yeah.
If Nashville's their Metro Council doesn't approve it, then we're the last man standing, and it just comes here. And thoughts, Greg?
I mean,
I have very mixed feelings on this, but I'm gonna let you go first on how you
know what, honestly, like as you know, when we were talking about this the other day, yesterday, I mean, I was like breathing fire about it, but like then that like rational side of me that also have worked in city government and knows what an event like this will bring, it's like I don't want it. I don't want it there. And honestly, here's like, for me, the biggest thought about this, and someone mentioned in the articles, it's about the safety of the individuals who are a part of this party now, who tend to take the spotlight. We're not just getting a bunch of people in stuffy suits like deciding who their nominee is going to be. It's people it could be in the streets and doing terrible things, and I don't know, like, I don't want that, but I do. I mean, like $200 million, that could be great for Milwaukee. That will be great for Milwaukee. I did notice that the city itself would get $6 million itself. I'm like, that seems like a very low price.
Yeah, there's a fair amount of research done, whether it's the Olympics or big national conventions like this, that the amount of resources put in and what the city, the government itself, like the city government gets back, is not.
No,
it either is a wash or sometimes they even lose money. But what will benefit is all the businesses downtown. So like, I know this firsthand because when the DNC was supposed to come here, my fiance, he has a co-working space, right? And like, it was completely like he overpriced it and it was completely booked. And like his friends who have, or colleagues who have different bars that were totally rented out for events or parties or whatever. And so I think the individual business owners and like absolutely stand to gain a lot because of the demand and proximity in downtown to where everything's going to be happening. So I don't think it's, when people say that it could be a wash and how much money will we actually get, I do think there's credibility for that for the actual city. And like, as we are facing a cliff of the city budget and how much like trouble we're in, I don't know if this is the solve for that, especially because we don't have a city sales tax. But it kind of comes down to what it seems like is I think you're right. I think there's a safety concern in these times of political violence, I guess, is the extremes on both sides. I think not to play to both sides cards, but I think there's going to be enough people who are really angry that the RNC is here that I think there will be a lot of protests. And as we've seen, people driving through protesters during Roe v. Wade, and images of that popping up, the idea that someone might run over a protester, or there's just, I think there's a chaos security issue. And then I think that there's just the people who feel like this state, a lot of parts of this state, I can't use that word, denigrate Milwaukee. They spend a lot of time complaining about Milwaukee and actually making legislation that makes it harder for Milwaukee to thrive. And so how do you that's a good how do you justify a party that's basically been trying to cancel Milwaukee votes from 2020 for the last 2 years and then be like, but come to our city, so I think it's very much an ideological, like, is it worth it? Like, is the money worth it? And I'm torn. I'll be honest, I'm torn.
I think that, for the Dems who are sitting in the Common Council and for the mayor himself, I think they look at this more of, look, you'll use us, we'll use you. Because one of the other things those articles discussed was the fact that you can use that RNC location as a way of getting other events here, whether it's an all-star game. I mean, Last time we had an all-star game here in Milwaukee. Didn't go so well for us. Beer bottles everywhere. People were very upset.
When was that?
It was like 2000, 2001, I believe. We had just built the stadium and they had the all-star game, and I believe they called it a tie. This is back before my baseball days, but I believe it was called it a tie, and then people were very upset.
A basketball game?
No, baseball.
Oh, I was like, what are we? I thought you.
There are other sports besides basketball,
Kristin. I misheard you. I was like, wait, when did we? Okay, keep going.
Yeah. So, I mean, they can use that to their advantage to get other things here. The other thing too is, when we were looking at, I'm sure this was probably spurred on by the original intent of Chicago to try to get the Olympics there. But when we were trying our hardest to get the DNC, we were like, yes, we'll build hotels. We'll build anything you want. We'll do whatever you want, and it's sort of that, it goes back to what you were saying. It's, how much do we have to do for you? And at the end of the day, then we got empty hotels and not being, and we saw that very much so. The fact, some of those hotels were built real fast.
Yeah. Well, and like potentially, I don't know the actual logistics of what would have gone into it, but was there no ability on the side of the Bucks, who, because the DNC owed them money, to negotiate with them and say, you have to come back in 2024? But instead, they got their money. They got they instead of using that negotiating chip, they were like, well, we'll take your money, and if you don't come back to Wisconsin in 2018 or 2024, that's fine. And so I don't know. I guess we'll find out, but it's looking more likely than I think it did a couple weeks ago. But what do you think? As a listener, as a Southeastern Milwaukeean who's potentially listening to this right now, or is listening to this right now, give us a call. Should Milwaukee host the RNC? 844-967-2789. That's 844-96-PARTY. And we'll be back after the break. Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin And I am here, actually not here. Greg, my friend and co-host for the day, Greg Bach, is in his home, and he is zooming in. But I can
Yes, I'm zooming. Kristin, no more Miss Nice Brey. That took too long to get to, but oh well, it's worth it.
No more Mrs. Nice Brey. I like that. I dig that. It helps people remember that it's Brey, not Brey, because everyone thinks about Brey, but it's Brey. Brey like try, don't know why.
I do Breyer's ice cream.
Yeah, it's like that. It's like Breyer's ice cream.
Because I'm a hungry guy.
So we were talking about the RNC, but similar to stay on the topic of at least the GOP.
Yeah.
On the heels, basically a day after, Kevin Nicholson, who was one of the 4 candidates running for the Republican, to be the Republican candidate for the governor's race in Wisconsin, dropped out of the race earlier this week and
suspended his campaign. I love that term.
I know.
He could come back.
Does anyone ever come back from a suspension of their campaign?
I'm still waiting for John Kerry. I mean, he suspended his campaign a long time ago, and you know what? Any day, Johnny K's, you got my vote.
So he's suspended his campaign, and the cited reason was in order to gain traction for his campaign, he felt like the only way to do that would be to go dirty and be negative. And he did not want to do that to the other candidates. He didn't want to do that for the party. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But that's
I think there was a story that they interviewed a bunch of people about him, and as they said, who?
Yeah, that too.
Who's that?
He was polling around 10%, I think.
Adorable.
So there was that. But we spent time yesterday talking about the idea of going negative and that's a good thing or a bad thing. But literally as of yesterday, now Rebecca Clayfish has an ad out specifically calling out Michaels, now the 2 top candidates, because I don't know if you thought you hadn't heard of Kevin Nicholson, I'm not sure really anyone's heard of Tim Rantham. But great.
I saw all of his yard sign.
You got people in your neighborhood who have a yard sign?
I've seen some Rantham yard signs.
All right. Does it have the ram horn on it? Because that's like his campaign logo is a ram with horns, and it's like he also had some great quote about being the only Tim. Like he was trying to do some word like playing with the word Tim, since there's Tim Michaels and Tim Rantham. And I wish I could remember it.
You can't spell freedom without Tim.
Yes, I don't think that's what it was, but that's basically the sentiment. So now it's Rebecca Clayfish and Tim Michaels, 2 top candidates. I think fairly neck and neck, depending on what the polling says. But she came out with an ad yesterday that specifically went at him at his decisions about the gas tax. And Luke, do we have a clip of that ad of what she said?
I'm Rebecca Clayfish, and I've put more than 200,000 miles on this old minivan. Thankfully, most of them came before Joe Biden and Tony Evers jacked up our gas prices. As your governor, I'll fight to cut taxes and stop liberal spending to lower costs for everyone. Tim Michaels pushed for years to raise our gas tax while getting rich from massive government contracts. Tim Michaels is out for himself. I'm Rebecca Clayfish, and I'm on your side.
Shots fired. I mean, and the truth is the what they cite I think in the ad, they cite where they got that information from is that he is part of different groups that have been supportive of the gas tax, both in Wisconsin and other states federally. And so whether it was the Wisconsin Transportation Builders Association or Transportation Development Association, or even the WMC, has all supported a higher gas tax. But of course, he came out and his response was, no, I don't.
I mean, what did you expect him to do? Like, do you expect him to present nuance in the face of Rebecca Clayfish? I mean, no, you don't do that. It's like the ad is beautiful. It's so funny. It's so like pats that minivan.
The minivan.
Good old minivan here's taking me a lot of miles because Joe Biden, Tim Michaels. My kids aren't going to soccer practice.
So this was his actual response, which is also pretty petty. So statement from gubernatorial candidate Tim Michaels on false Clayfish ad. When politicians are shocked to find themselves losing, they go negative out of desperation. So it is sad that the former lieutenant governor has decided to go negative by falling in line with politics as usual. If you like politics as usual, then vote for the usual politicians. I never attacked my competitors in business in order to get ahead, but I will defend myself when attacked. The negative ad is completely false. I did not and do not advocate for a higher gas tax. Moreover, it doesn't help us defeat Tony Evers this fall. That is my focus. That is our mission. So,
okay, so two things about that. First of all, in 2022 politics, I think it's so cute that Tim Michaels thinks that this is negative. Like,
that's true.
Like, I get that this is it's an attack ad, but I don't feel like it's like saying, "Oh, you were in the company," and whatever. But also, I give him credit for not saying, "I'm not a politician," though. You know, he did say if you like politics,
he has said that a fair amount.
I mean, in the statement, though, I'm saying, because usually when people like that are running, they'll put in everything. They'll make T-shirts. I'm not a politician, but I don't know. Was an attack ad? Yeah, by definition, it was going after.
I mean, if anything, it's not really an attack ad. It was actually just say because she cited where he likely is surrounded by or involved with groups who have advocated for that. And so I think it's the first of many as far as how these two end up going at it, because I think he's just totally backdoored her after she's 3.5 years. So should be an interesting less than 5 weeks to see where this goes. But all right, when we come back after the break, your new hometown of Kenosha, we're going to talk about more guns. Guns. As goes Wisconsin, Kristin, Brey. We'll be back in a minute. Welcome back. As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin, Brey, and my friend Greg Bach, comedian,
Hello.
writer, ex-campaigner. We got Luke in the producer's chair and Madison. We're all just doing this thanks to technology. None of us are even in the same room. This is how it works now. We can bring it to you from wherever. So, Greg, you are, as of this week, going to be, not quite yet, but going to be a homeowner in Kenosha County. Congratulations.
Yeah.
And so news broke today of your new home, or soon to be home, that one day after not only the mass shooting in Illinois, just across the border, but also the city of Kenosha itself had a shooting on July 4th that left 4 injured and 1 person dead. But despite that, the Kenosha County Board moves to have fewer gun restrictions on county property. So they voted 14-7 to approve a resolution allowing people to carry firearms and electronic weapons in county buildings and on county-owned property, besides not including courthouses and other like law enforcement departments or buildings. So I didn't realize that they've been debating this for a while.
Yeah.
And then a dude was he arrested or was he just kicked out of the county meeting?
He was arrested. His name's Joel Trudell, and he actually went there to talk about what happened was this gentleman, Joel Trudell, went to a board meeting and used his time during the minutes to talk about how the council members the supervisors who were voting for this were basically had outside money coming in to influence their decision. Like he was calling all these people saying, like, you got money coming from South Carolina, you got money coming from Minnesota, why do you do that? And thousands of dollars too. And
for a county board seat is a lot.
That's a lot for generally a county board seat or a city council. You want to raise like a high number is like 50,000, and then you keep usually half of that in your war chest for the re-election. But you usually raise a couple $1,000s. You put some yard signs, shake hands. It's really cool and nice. But this guy went there with dramatics, and from what I've been told by on high, we cannot play the video because
we cannot play the video because we didn't have enough time to bleep out the amount of profanity that he used. And so instead, since we can't play the video, Mr. Greg Bach, performer extraordinaire, is going to do a dramatic reenactment.
I wish I had a transcript.
What happened in the video? Maybe he's going to take some liberties, but because you've watched it, I haven't even watched the video. I just heard about it. So, ladies and gentlemen, Greg Bach.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to talk about the fact that that members of this board have been influenced by outside money. No, I will talk. And then a man, as I call out each and every one of you who have been influenced by outside money on this matter of making this a Second Amendment sanctuary here in Kenosha. What a crock. What a bleeping crock, I tell you. A man walks behind me and mutters a threat, and then I say, well, luckily I don't have concealed carry, or I could have done something about it. Then I'm gavelled down by the president of the board and said that is out of line, uncalled for. Well, I'm not going to stop. In fact, I want my time back. Give me my time back, sir. I can't have my time back. That is wrong. And you're gonna have these uniformed officers remove me. Well, I will start screaming and yelling and saying, "They are arresting me, sirs! They are arresting me, sirs!" And then the audience, the people behind me, the good taxpayers of Kenosha will say, "Let him speak," and they will say, "Shame, shame." And that is my dramatic reenactment of Joel Trudell, who was released from jail yesterday on contempt of court and causing a nuisance, I believe. Yes. Joel Trudell.
It wasn't court.
What was
just
it?
Contempt? Is it just contempt if you do?
Oh yeah, I guess it's not contempt. He was just causing a problem. I got in my Law and Order brain there. I've been watching a lot of Night Court this morning, so
Very, I mean, slow clap for the
Thank you. You know what? I'm
impromptu reenactment, but we kind of joke, but it feels egregious. And maybe the time, they weren't planning on the timing, but in this country, almost any day there could be a mass shooting. And so it's this continued fight over the idea that I'm allowed to protect myself because there's so many guns out there, and I should be able to do it in more and more places, versus the very hard fact that in places where there are more guns, there is more gun violence. Like,
yes.
not get around the numbers of, people love to throw the well, there's in cities and the gun violence in Chicago and Milwaukee, but the top states by gun deaths are Mississippi, Louisiana, Wyoming, Missouri, Alabama, Alaska. The states that with the highest gun ownership rates, Mississippi, Louisiana, Wyoming, Missouri, Alabama, Alaska. Like, it's just correlated that more guns equals more gun violence. And so it seems wild that right after a shooting in the city of Kenosha that they would vote this way, but
there's two things about this. First of all, it says in the article, and I was trying to find the name of the actual supervisor who said it is ill-timed, but that's our nation's like go-to statement. Every time it's ill-timed, we can't talk about this stuff, and then something happens, and we can't talk about that, and then it just keeps on happening and happening. Now, like, I'm talking about in the sense of gun reform, we can't do that, but like what they did, it doesn't shock me at all. It doesn't shock me at all that they did this the day after, because for them, they saw what happened as a threat upon their freedom. Therefore, they have to do something about it. To me, that's doing it the day after is a symbol, not ill-timed. They knew what they were doing. They knew what they were doing. It's in their mind, it was the exact right timing. And also, not to mention the fact that they forever have this legacy now of a young man coming up from Illinois and shooting people in their county, in their city. And it's like, yeah, I absolutely have no doubt in my mind, and I absolutely 100% believe that they thought that they were shining their suits up and being the great saviors I think they are by allowing people to bring guns into a county building. And the whole Second Amendment sanctuary thing, it's like, America is a Second Amendment sanctuary. Let's not mess around here, okay? Let's don't call yourself something special, Kenosha. I can't believe I'm going to live there soon. God!
Oh, well, but this also is...
It's a really pretty house. It's a really pretty house.
I'm so excited to see it, Greg. But this is also a reminder that every election has consequences, because I would say the turnout in spring nonpartisan elections is always low, at least in current times, is very low. We saw it in Milwaukee, despite, the first time having a non-incumbent mayor's race, and it was this abysmal turnout. But across the board, people don't necessarily get fired up for elections for county board seats or elections for city council, or it's a lot of times we don't have a statewide election in the spring. But this was a big deal because this was the first time that Kenosha, despite them being nonpartisan seats, but the more conservative, this was in this last spring election in 2022. That made headlines, was that the Kenosha County Board was flipped from more blue to now more red, and they had the votes. And so I don't know I can't off the top of my head, I don't know what voter turnout was across Kenosha, but it is one of our more purple, Racine, Kenosha, definitely two of our most purple counties. And so it could have swung. And so it comes back to elections have consequences.
And what really sucks is that then if the Dems want to try to take it back somehow, they have to work 10 times harder than Republicans will have to work to keep
the
those
county.
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
People, well, because I think to get people interested in that election, in those sorts of elections, I think the age-old belief is that Republicans it's election day, I go vote for my person, that's it. And with Democrats, it's a little bit harder. It's a little bit harder to get them to vote. You got to talk to them about it. You got to get out there and knock on doors and really make them aware. Whereas Republicans just seem to get out there and vote. They vote together and they win together. That's...
Yeah.
You disagree?
No, I think because I see it more as a age thing when it comes to municipal and county.
Yeah, that's my point. Yeah.
Because like as you and I are both becoming homeowners, for me the first time, is this the first home that you're gonna be owning?
First time, baby.
Yeah. So all of a sudden there's things that you didn't think about when you were just a renter, like property tax, like all these different, like getting my street cleaned and stuff, the like logistical stuff that cities and counties are responsible for. And all of a sudden you care a lot more about those positions than when you're a young 20 something who's like, I don't even know where I'm going to live next year.
Yeah. Oh,
So I think it's as much as an age thing as it is, and like responsibility of where you are in your life than it is, shall we say, just party based. But I have no numbers to back that up. So maybe I don't know. Maybe you're right.
Well, I feel like with the aging population of the Republican Party, they just are on top of that all the time. It just feels like they come out in bigger numbers. It might not be huge numbers, but it's just, it's based on experience, based on just watching the turnouts.
I mean, Racine has a similar, I think, rural to city breakdown.
Yeah.
And like, I think they're obviously two different counties, but similar, they mirror each other in a lot of ways. And you haven't done not a county race, but the mayor's race in Racine. Like, a little bit more about it probably than I do, because I've never lived in that part of the state.
It's beautiful. The lake is nice.
Close to Chicago. Do you ever go to the premium outlet? Do you really take advantage of being close?
I buy all of my shoes there. Not even kidding you. I'm not even kidding you. I go to yep.
Is there just on the other side of the border, is there a cannabis store that you can just run to really easily?
I will make no response to that. I will make no comment on that, as Wisconsin has some really cool laws, yo. Real cool laws.
So you got like run to one side of the border, like get your weed, run to the other side of the border, get your like lower sales tax on your Pumas.
Actually, for the initiated, you don't go to Illinois. You go to Michigan. 1, lower sales tax. 2, you can buy more. And 3, it's a beautiful drive.
You go to really? That's a much further drive though. You just take the ferry? Do you ever take the ferry to Michigan?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I've yet
to get my car on there, just watch it, and just be like in like a half an hour. In a half an hour, my car is just going to be stocked with enough to arrest me for the rest of my life.
Probably not though, because isn't it decriminalized in the cities of Racine and Kenosha?
Yeah, not the amount that I buy.
Oh God.
No. I would love honestly I would love to keep this charade going, but if you know me, you know that I don't do it at all. I look like it. I look like I am like a cannabis farm come to life, but
wait, are you guys talking about Mackinac Island fudge, or what are you guys talking about?
This guy gets it. Luke gets it. We're talking about Door County cherries.
There we go.
Wink, wink, honk, honk. We've gone off the rails. Yeah, I don't, especially, I don't know what's, so if it's in county property, if you're taking it back to the vote in Kenosha, I don't know how much more expansive that becomes. Like, what would be an example of county property where people can now bring a gun where they couldn't before? Like to work?
Yeah, to work, to like the county buildings. Like if you
it's mostly like for people who are like employees of the county that now like they go to
maybe
work,
a golf course,
county fair, county parks.
Yeah,
could be many of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know this
county county water building.
Yeah, we're not going to solve anything, and I'm sure I don't know if we've gotten any calls on this already, or text. But it feels maybe, like you said, I feel like it feels not well timed, but maybe that was by design. So
because you're a rational human being, that's why it wasn't well timed.
Okay, we're gonna make it a little bit more fun when we come back, because Giannis once again got screwed, and I want to complain about it. So when we get back, we're gonna talk about Giannis and
sports ball.
As goes Wisconsin with Kristin, Brey. Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin and Kristin Brey. I like this music list.
This is Run the Jewels, baby.
Greg's pick. This is
DJ Shadow featuring Run the Jewels. I'm going to go see them on Saturday.
at Summerfest.
No, at Alpine Valley. Even worse.
Is it worse? Why would you say it's worse?
Oh, it's just so many people. If it rains, forget about it.
I haven't been to Alpine Valley since I was 14 to see. Guess who I saw at
New
Alpine
Kids on the
Valley
Block.
when I was 14
In sync.
in living in Wisconsin. If you can imagine, I was a teenager in the early 2000s.
Pat McCurdy.
No, come on.
I don't know. Radiohead, were you cool?
No, I was super cliche. It was Dave Matthews Band.
That was gonna be my guess. I should have said it out loud. That was what I was thinking in my head.
I actually wait. When was that? When was that?
That would have been the fall of 2000, my freshman year of high school. We went to Alpine Valley. There was some parent.
I went to that show.
Yep, and one parent had to sit in the car in the parking lot while us is like
Luke's left. He's like, I'm done with you.
I'm just that was gonna be my guess.
Yeah.
I should have said it.
Yeah,
I should have
I
said
still listen to Dave. I went when they were at Summerfest last year. I was like,
You just called him Dave.
still hit me. All right.
I went to that show and I remember going there and being like, this is like a Fish show, but with prettier people.
That's a good analysis. All right. So this is not new news. This broke last week, but I wasn't paying attention apparently because I only found out about it like yesterday, and I don't care that it's old because I'm still mad about it. So I don't know if you even care about this. I'm going to spring this on you, but the ESPYs, which I like a good ESPY.
Really legitimate, really like important awards.
It's kind of like the MTV Movie Awards of sports.
You shut your mouth. Those are important, okay?
But they always have some Man of the Year award that has some speech that makes me want to cry. They do a very good job. It's an entertaining production, but they unveiled their nominees this year, and Green Bay Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers is among the nominees for both Best Athlete and Best NFL player. I think for Best Athlete, it's like Best Athlete male sports. They
nominated from WNBA, and they got these,
Yeah. You know who's not nominated for best male athlete or even best NBA player? That's a question.
Giannis?
Yes, Giannis.
I do.
My God.
And
are we officially a zoo show now? We go play the
Aruba.
Ooga ooga.
So the four people who are nominated, you probably won't even know who. How big of a basketball fan are you? I grew up in a very heavy basketball house, and I have my allegiance is very much pledged to the house of Giannis.
So if you're asking me the question how much I love basketball, okay, imagine the number one, go below that, like 10 digits below that.
10 digits or 10 decimals?
Not decimals.
So you're negative. I don't
care about basketball. Here's the thing: is my friend Dana Ehrman will confirm this. When the Bucks are winning, I'm very excited for the fans and the city. I love that. I love the energy. But man, basketball is boring. Holy cow! Go on though. You want to talk about excitement? Let's talk about Wimbledon. All right, Wimbledon people.
They have their scoring system's so weird. We had a debate yesterday about golf, and I'm not going to get into it. Love? How is love a score? That makes no sense. Makes no sense.
Love means nothing.
That's some British.
Love means nothing.
Shenanigans on tennis scoring rules. But why does Giannis not get the love that he deserves? He's arguably going to go down as one of the best NBA players of all time. Like, he's not even potentially in his prime yet, and he's accomplished so much. And I don't know how doesn't make these lists. Especially, there's no one more lovable than Giannis in the NBA. I will fight anyone on that.
I have a theory on this. So like at the top of the segment, we said the SP is very important. My guess is the SPs and their nominations are driven by managers and agents.
Mm,
Who between the
Giannis
two?
better agent? Is that what we're saying?
What I'm saying is, who between the two has more cleanup to do on their image between the two of them?
Oh, between Rogers and
Yeah.
yeah.
I bet you Giannis doesn't even care. I'm sure if he won the award, he'd probably get up there, tell a really dumb joke, and be very happy, and it'd be wonderful, and it would go on YouTube, and now that would cover that and everything. But dude got damage controlled. I mean, he's immunized from good press.
Speaking of dumb jokes, Luke, you got a dumb joke for us?
What do you call a cow on the floor? Anybody know? Ground beef.
How do you
You
not
know
love
what's
that man?
It took way too long to get it. Ground beef, genius.
Oh, you
The
didn't know you could hear it coming.
The thing I love about him is that he enjoyed the joke more than anybody
Oh,
else.
he always does. He always does. He always is like smirking so much before he can even get the punchline out because he thinks it's the funniest thing that he's ever said.
I just think that I don't know the man. I've never met him, but like he just seems like the kind of guy who truly does not care about an award as momentous as the ESPYs.
The Espies. I'm
rebranding them as the ESPYs.
You sound French. The Espies?
ESPYs. Goals.
Yeah, you're probably right. I don't think he probably cares either. I think he mostly just cares about winning another championship because basketball is a team sport, unlike tennis.
Unless you're playing doubles.
True.
Boom.
I feel like doubles are not as popular as the.
No, it's actually miserable. I can't watch doubles tennis. It's just I'm just like I feel like I'm watching a clown car car into like a court and they're just blah, blah, whatever.
Doubles beach volleyball though. Very entertaining.
That's pretty fun to watch. That's intense. Actually, it's outside. It's not intense.
I can't even jump on a hardwood floor. Like I can't even imagine trying to jump in sand. Like what they do is wildly impressive. The athleticism it takes to play that. Well, any athlete at any level like that, it's like, well, we're not in the same league anymore. All right. That was a little fun. We're gonna go back to being a little more serious and talk about what public school was like when you were a kid. Because I remember what my public school experience was like. And I wonder how different it is now based on a new report from the Wisconsin Policy Forum. And we'll talk about that when we get back. This is As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin, Brey, and Greg Bach.
Hi.
Live to shoot another day.
And 101 FM is produced right in the Shaw in beautiful downtown Waukesha, Wisconsin.
Bringing some sanity to the airwaves. The Shaw 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin, Brey. We're in hour 2 of our third day. It's running smoothly.
It felt like 5 hours.
Well, you shut your pie hole. It's such a burden on your life to be here with me today, Greg Bach.
What? I was like, oh.
What do you mean? I thought you said it felt like 5 hours. That was a compliment?
Well, we're in hour 2 of day 3. We've been doing it for, it's a math joke. Whatever. Luke gets it. Luke's all like, Luke is going to follow. I'm a genius, folks. Comic genius.
I understood both sides of that joke. So I saw the offense, but I also got the math humor.
All right. Call it a draw. Speaking of math, how was math when you were in? Did you go to public school?
No, I went to private school.
You're a private school kid. All right.
Yep. And what's fun, in the Waukesha, in the Shaw itself, I'm born and raised on the playgrounds is where I never spent any of my time. I was an indoor kid.
Which is such a bummer because you're such a big guy that I'm sure they wanted to recruit you.
Oh, they wanted me to play football, but I wanted the theater.
Which part of Waukesha? In like Waukesha City of or the county of?
City of. Grew up off of Sunset Drive. If anyone's listening right now, that means anything to you. By the old Fleming building with Spring Sea Soccer Field, where there's now a Kohl's and a Target and a BW3s and whatnot. We're not sponsored by any of these groups, by the way. I'm just giving you free advertisement. But yeah, I grew up on the south side of Waukesha City, and I went to Catholic Memorial High School. And to answer your original question, I was terrible at math.
But yeah, I can make jokes about it. I split my time. I grew up in Madison. Kindergarten went to public school. 1st through 5th grade went to a Catholic K through 8 school, or 1 through 8 school at that point. Convinced my parents. This is kind of a fun story. Convinced my parents that I would fit in better at the public middle school because I, not shockingly, was a huge child and a huge tomboy, and so like I don't fit with the boys.
You were a huge child, like you were just.
I was massive. I was like the biggest kid in my grade. Yeah, like the boys didn't really catch up to me until freshman or sophomore year of high school. And it was just, there's 50 kids per grade, and I just didn't feel like I fit in. And so I was like, I think I'll do better at the public school, and somehow convinced my parents to let me do it. And so then middle school and high school, I went to public schools, and so I went to Cherokee and Madison West, and this was the end of the 2000s and into the early 2000s, and public schools were pretty good. Yeah, right. Public schools were pretty good in Wisconsin.
I mean, in Madison, they probably were, and
Madison, they definitely were.
Yeah,
I think they're still decent in Madison. I mean, we know MPS is I don't even know. I don't know enough about education policy to know where you start with MPS, but there's a new report out. I bring this up because there's a new report from the Wisconsin Policy Forum. Shout out to them because they do very good work. And they found that Wisconsin has not kept pace with the national growth in public education spending. So we are spending $12,740 per student on public elementary and secondary education. That was in 2020. And that's almost 6% below the national average. And so we, in 2002, so I would have been sophomore in high school, we were in the country, we were the 11th highest per pupil spending in the country. And now we're 25th.
Jesus. Jeez.
And so it's not that, so what they found is it's not so much that we're cutting spending. It's more that we're not keeping up with what other states are spending per pupil. And not shockingly, the main cause of that is because we're collecting less income taxes from residents. And so there's less money to spend on public schools. And so I guess I'm not surprised because I feel like in general, the austerity of we cut taxes. We have this massive surplus that's like in the billions. Continuing, you know, there's proposals out there to cut income tax altogether from certain groups saying, we should, you know, spike up the sales tax or have different ways with income tax would make us a more competitive state and draw, you know, people who want to live here more. But this just comes back to feeling like, I think there's we all hate taxes, right? When you actually have to go pay taxes, because it often feels like it's easy to forget what they pay for.
Yeah.
And when you see numbers like this, though, you're like, really, you're like half, or like middle of the pack, because we used to have such a incredible public school system. I mean, this isn't even including the crown jewel of what the UW system was for a very long time, and how much that's been gutted.
Until we needed a new basketball stadium. Sorry, what? Sorry.
More spokesful. That was a while ago, though. That was like, are you talking about Kohl Center?
No, I'm talking about the Pfizer Forum.
Yeah, but that's not the UW system.
They took money out of the UW system to help fund that.
Did they really?
They did.
Oh, I did not know that that's where the money came from.
But like,
what happens when you're out here for 17 years?
The same amount of, so it wasn't supposed to be like, it wasn't a this for that, but it was just one of those things where it was like $700 million of financing for the stadium. And then UW System's budget went down $700 million. So it wasn't like we're stealing it from the UW system. It was more of like, oh, that's weird how that works out. And then nobody really talked about it.
We're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah, because it's a finite amount of money, right? And so,
yeah. And you said like it's not a cut, and that's right. It's not a specific cut, but like, let's face it, if you're not raising the average to, you're cutting essentially. Like you're not, I mean, like it's not cutting in a traditional sense, but you're not giving them the resources. And the one question I have is, and it may sound odd, but in that $12,740 figure, does that take into consideration also how much the teacher spends out of pocket?
No.
Okay.
How would you count that? Like, how would you?
I don't know.
That's
honestly,
that's
I don't
not
know.
a state budget thing. That is the.
I honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they asked the teachers, how much do you spend? We want to, like, you know, so we can bolster our numbers. I would, you know what I mean?
Someone has that information.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm always just left as like, all right, what are you willing to trade off to have lower taxes? Right. I mean, like, because that's what it comes down to. So in order to say, you know, for the people who are like, taxes are theft, it's like, all right, so what are you willing to, as we sit here and have like the county parks in Milwaukee County are basically bankrupt because that is publicly funded. And like the only thing that's really given them a boost as of recent is the introduction of beer gardens, right? And having some of that money go to the county parks. Decrease in how good our public school or how funded our public schools are, which usually correlates to how good they are. Roads, right? Like, you know, I always laugh at and like quiver a little bit is whenever I take the drive from either like from Milwaukee to drive to my parents' house to Wisconsin Rapids, the amount of dead animals I see on the roads in Wisconsin.
Tires, the amount of tires.
See, that doesn't make me as queasy. It's the dead animals, the amount of them that's like, oh, we just decided to stop paying for those to get picked up. And so it's like the constant question of what are you willing to forego in order to have lower taxes? Because it feels in your pocketbook, you're like, well, I'm paying lower in taxes, but like ultimately it adds up of what you don't have access to that is usually funded by the government. And so I'd love to hear from people, anyone who's listening, who knows that math for themselves of what that balance is of how much you pay in taxes versus how much, you know, the public goods that you grew up with maybe that aren't there anymore, and how much that affects you or how much that doesn't go into your calculus when you're like, no, I just want lower taxes. Because that is the simple, it's fun that we started with math because we're still talking about math, but there is it is a trade-off ultimately. Like you can't have government funded resources and then also pay a very small amount of taxes. Oh, do you have that calculus done?
Do I?
Yeah. Do you ever think about it like this?
I mean, when I think about taxes, it's a really old quote. Oliver Wendell Holmes. It's that the taxes are the price we pay to live in a civilized society. And I personally feel like if we want to enjoy our cities, if we have a good education, we have to pay our fair share. And if that means we have to pay a little bit more, then we pay a little bit more. This goes back to, like, how much are we being paid in our jobs? How much are we paying in taxes? Would I like lower taxes? I would, but not at the cost of other things or other people. Even though I don't have children and I don't plan on having children, and therefore I'm like, public school is not really a thing for me, as far as like, what kind of education would my kids get. I still want kids to have a really good education in public schools, and I would pay more. I would pay as much as I could to still put food on my table.
Well, that's the whole idea. And that's why we also, as a public, get to vote for school boards, because the entire concept is an educated electorate is good for everybody. Like, the smarter the average person is in any given population, the better the collective betterment of that population, right? And so that's the entire premise behind starting public school, was that it's good for everyone, whether or not you're the child or someone who has a child, right? And so that's why we pay for it with taxes, and that's why we, as the public, despite not having children, get to vote in school boards.
Yeah.
And so that's just because it's supposed to be a benefit, and whether you think it's not, or that's up to you. But I would say at one point, when we had really good public schools, and everyone was a little bit more aware of, civics and stuff like that, things were different. And so I certainly am on the side, not shocking to anyone probably, that I am willing to pay higher taxes in order to get some of these things taken care of. And, it's all relative too, because having lived 17 years in California and New York, in the most expensive, literally the cost of living, but also the two states that take the most amount of your money. Moving back to Wisconsin, I was like, oh, this is all I owe? Great.
Yeah.
It's like, it's all relative, right? Of what we actually are paid or have to pay here versus what you just suck it up and pay in other places. But they also have a lot more like amenities and stuff that you have access to. So, all right. Well, when we come back, we're gonna go back to comedy. A Wisconsin comedian, if we can call him that. I think we can.
Yes, we can.
Was featured on Google. So we'll talk about that when we get back. As goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey.
It's finished today. R&J. We the new PB&J. We dropped the classic today. We did a tablet I eat today. The toy with the matches and actions away. See that's your way.
Welcome back to Jazz Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey. I was just thinking, my mom texted me yesterday. So all of our bumper music yesterday was Eric Church, chosen by Mistress Becky. And my mom texted me how much she loved the music. And I guarantee I'm going to get a text saying, she's like, I don't know if I like the music as much today. It's just fine. This is an eclectic show. We represent all music types here.
Heck yeah.
Welcome back. I'm Kristin Brey. I'm here with Greg Bach. We got Luke as producer. And we have a good story. We have a great story. You brought this to my attention.
I did.
Both comedians, you and I, love the comedy. And yesterday, the Google Doodle, if people still pay attention to those, they change their home page image every day, and there's always a little story and history or facts about the behind the doodle. And yesterday, there was a Wisconsin connection, and you brought this to my attention. So why don't you tell us more about Charlie Hill?
So Charlie Hill yesterday celebrated his 71st birthday, and Google gave him his very own Google Doodle. Very hard to say, Google Doodle. Charlie Hill is the first Native American stand-up comedian to appear on national television. That was on the Richard Pryor show. He went on to become a regular comedy clubs all over the country, including the Comedy Store, which is probably the most famous comedy club in the world. And went on to perform all over the world for the next decade. He's still performing, as far as I know, today. Was born in Detroit, but he grew up in Wisconsin, identified himself as a Wisconsin comedian, went to school here in Wisconsin, and got degrees in I believe, in drama.
No, he actually died in 2013.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
I thought, for some reason, okay, I know things, okay, people? I know things.
Before we start getting texts being like, he actually is not alive anymore. But he...
Don't text.
I think he performed up until his death.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, he's someone who came to my knowledge very recently, but like, I thought it was really cool that, like, of all the people that Google gives doodles to, I mean, I've seen them given the scientists and you know, all these amazing people, and they made time for this man and gave him his doodle. That's great. I loved it.
Yeah, I didn't know. I actually didn't know who he was. But what's interesting is when I started watching some of his clips, and I think we have one we can play. The amount I think we see now of comedians who are of different ethnicities and heritages and races who. That's a lot of what their comedy is. Actually, yeah. I saw your friend. I'm on the spot, and I'm
Hari Kondabolu.
Yes, and it was just exactly how it's spelled, and I get nervous every time. But I saw him live at the comedy, the Laughing Tap, and so much in Indian Man. A lot of his humor, I find him hilarious, is both political but also conversations about race, conversations about being a minority in the U.S. And I don't know if I'd say Charlie Hill paved the way, but maybe, because when you actually start listening to some of his comedy, it is very much like calling out the elephant in the room of being a Native man and white peopling. And I think the quote that I found that I really liked is like, the entertainment industry makes fun of the way we dance, we sing, our drum, our names, our religion, our rituals, you name it. My whole thing is to get people to laugh with us, not at us.
Which I think with that statement alone says, yes, he opened up doors, because I think when it's about it's about representation, when people see different representation, they can laugh at different things. And then more importantly, a young kid sitting in their house watching this says, oh, I can do this. He's doing this. I could do this too. I got things to say. I think definitely opens doors. Like I said, I'm a little bummed that I didn't know about Mr. Hill sooner, but I think that's great. I think it was great, and I loved it. I thought it was really, really cool. And he says in one of the clips, he says I'm from Wisconsin. I'm like, yes, you are. Yeah, you're from Wisconsin.
He lived on the reservation. Lived on the Oneida Reservation, and then he went to do Pierre High School, and that went to UW. So I think we have a little bit. We'll play like a minute of his Richard Pryor. I don't know. I think this might be his actual TV premiere or debut on the Richard Pryor show.
Yeah.
And so we'll play like a minute of that before we go to break.
Yay.
Hi, how are you? Hi, how are you? Hi, how are you? Hi, how are you?
I usually have problems doing my act, you know, because I know a lot of you white people never seen an Indian do stand-up comedy before, you know. Like for so long, you probably thought that Indians never had a sense of humor, you know. We never thought you were too funny either. These are people back there putting their chairs in a circle. My name is Charlie Hill, Sagoli. I'm Oneida. I'm from Wisconsin. It's part of the Iroquois Nation. My people are from Wisconsin. We used to be from New York. We had a little real estate problem. I came out here, Los Angeles, a few years ago. I don't drink, so no, don't drink. Firewater the Indians. It's just like kryptonite. Here, drink this, sign this, move here. You know, Indians. You know, people come up to me now too, and they say, "Can you speak Indian?" And they're like over 300 different tribes. You know, can you speak Indian? It's like saying, "Hey, can you speak Caucasian?" Yeah. But that's the name they gave us, Indians. That's Indians was the name Christopher Columbus gave us, which is incorrect. He named us Indians because he thought he was in India. You know, I'm sure glad he wasn't looking for Turkey. Things, a lot of things. Columbus discovered America. They taught me that when I was a kid. Columbus discovered Indians. You know, that was my education. You see, like black people, Indians were driven to all white schools. You see, except the black people got the buses. The Indians were just driven. I went to Custer Memorial Junior High. You know,
Yeah, I mean that's from the 70s. I feel like that was
like the Pilgrims. They weren't my forefathers. No, yes. Pilgrims came to this land.
all right.
400
So we're
years
gonna
ago,
go to
so
break
little
and
aliens.
then we'll come back. That was Charlie Hill, and this is As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey.
Yeah, we used to call them whitebacks.
I was toting my pack along the dusty Winnemucca Road when along came a semi with a high and canvas covered load. If you're going to Winnemucca Mac, with me you can ride. And so I climbed into the cab and then I settled down inside. He asked me if I'd seen a road with so much dust and sand, and I said, listen, I've traveled every road in this here land. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the desert,
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. You can see us all just bopping our heads. This song still slaps, man. Still a good song. Still a really good song. Welcome back. As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey. I am here with Greg Bach in the last half hour of the show. And have you gotten your absentee ballot for the primary?
No, I haven't. I gotta not sure when, like, because with the move and everything, because I think I moved like
vote in person.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna vote in person because I have to re-register and do all that stuff. And yeah, because I think it's the week after. Yeah, it's the week after we move.
Okay. Yeah, because it's less than 5 weeks from today,
Yep.
August 9th. So as we kind of talked about this yesterday, as far as how well in the major statewide race for the Democrats who are running for U.S. Senate, how well they've differentiated themselves. And I've admitted, I don't know if I admitted it on air actually, but I still don't know who I'm going to vote for. But I have 5 weeks and figured out. I think there was a lot, even as of last month, there was 36% of people who plan to vote in the Democratic primary still didn't know who they were voting for. So I'm not alone, but people are voting. People are already putting their ballots in because the absentee ballots have arrived. And one of the points you brought up to me as we were thinking through what we wanted to talk about today is kind of this, what seems like 2, maybe even 3 decade problem of Democrats trying to connect with rural Wisconsin and even more specifically Wisconsin farmers. And, I've never felt super educated, like in the place to talk about this topic because I am very much a city girl. I grew up in Madison, lived in other big cities, came back, and now live in Milwaukee. And so my finger is not really on the pulse of the issues that resonate. I mean, I can read about it, but it's not in my gut as far as understanding what resonates with people, like a very big portion of our state and a very big part of our economy and what we're known for. And so you seem to have thoughts on this. And so as far as who has potentially differentiated themselves on this topic specifically?
Well, I think that when it comes down to it, like, when I was studying in college, I have a degree in political science from UWM, and one of the books we had to read was a book called What's the Matter with Kansas? And the ultimate question was how did the Conservative Party, how did the Republicans win what was the heartland, essentially the farmers, that area, all those areas that when you think of Republicans, you think of big business tying themselves to huge corporations, but they somehow managed to rework their messaging to get to those points that are not that are not big business, essentially, and say, like, we're with you, we believe in you, we are your America. And farmers and people who live in rural areas just took it, and they've been controlling those areas for a very long time using things like patriotism, fear, the liberal agenda, things like that. And
Democrats cheat.
And Democrats, yeah, and the problem is that Democrats generally don't form, and I mean, not all of them, of course, but like they tend to not form plans which include those areas, include the farmers. They don't really have, like, they'll say things like the farmers are the backbone of America, but they also say the same thing. All politicians say that small business owners are the backbones of America. And I think when it comes to someone who's really, I mean, and this is not an endorsement by any such stretch of the imagination, because I also am not truly down with who I'm going to vote for just yet. But Nelson, Tom Nelson. I wanted to call him Tim. Tom
There
Nelson.
are two other Tims, but they're on the other.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't vote in both the Republican and Democratic primary. I'm going to keep beating this drum for everyone who has an active ballot. There's not a clerk there to be like, no, you can't vote in both. You got to pick one. So either Republican candidates or Democrat candidates if you're don't vote in both. Anyways,
but Outagamie County Exec Tom Nelson is from rural Wisconsin. Now, me saying this doesn't mean I'm not proposing that any of the other candidates don't understand. Well, maybe I am. He grew up in rural Wisconsin, and the other candidates are just, I feel like, giving lip service to the farmers, as Democrats and Republicans do as well. Like, a lot of people give lip service to that demographic of individuals, whereas Nelson has he's put forth like a plan. Here's what I'm going to do to help farmers, not only just farmers, but like small farmers, because that's an important, very affected area of America that's being taken over by big farms, which of course push the Republican agenda because they're going to get all the money and subsidies and whatnot. So like reading in a Cap Times article, actually it was an op-ed. It was an op-ed done saying that really saying that like Nelson is the only one who's actually come forward and said he is going to put farmers first and he's going to protect the dairy farmers and the land. And I think that's something that Democrats don't generally do. They just pay lip service. And I think something that Nelson's doing that's setting himself apart is he's trying to get out there and really appeal. And the fact he's from Outagamie and not from Milwaukee. He's not the son of a billionaire, and then, those things matter to people who they're trying to hook.
Is Godlewski from Eau Claire?
Yeah.
But not a farm, not like a rural.
I believe her family is more rural, Trumpelow County, I believe, over in Mississippi, or somewhere specifically in Eau Claire, but
not Mississippi State, Mississippi the River.
Mississippi the River, correct. Over there, yeah. ISS. But I believe that's where her roots were, but she's also spent a lot of time in DC and and stuff of that nature.
Yeah, like she left and moved back. There's nothing wrong with that as someone who's done the exact same thing.
No, I mean that's the thing is like I don't want it almost seems like they get penalized from being from cities. They're penalized for going off and doing their thing, but it's important to come back and say like we have to take care of you. You're important to us. We're and I just think that that's something that Democrats don't really do well. I don't think a lot of politicians do well because they don't know how to they do, because they're not talking to everybody and they can only say so much, and they generally put it together in nice little packages.
Yeah. And I always wonder, I was listening to a podcast the other day, everyone's talking about from the top down Biden. I think there's more and more, especially as the midterms come up, governors and Senate races where the messaging is starting to splinter from White House messaging.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think there's more of an understanding, and I don't understand why that always hasn't been the case to a certain extent, because if there's, Biden's arguably talking out of both sides of his mouth, trying to appeal to both moderates and progressives. And so thus it's mixed messaging and what the agenda is and the priority is and everything. And so, for a governor like Evers or a governor like in Pennsylvania and like, I never understood why it all has to be one party message instead of understanding what works for who live in your state. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that does make a lot of sense. And because I think in the op-ed that you referenced, which is kind of shocking, that they said the last Wisconsin Democrat who beat a sitting Republican U.S. senator was in 1992.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Like that's 30 years ago. And that was Russ Feingold. And then obviously he was in seat for a while, but because it's not like I think Ron Johnson's looking out for the farmers.
No.
Right? Like it's interesting that they would I don't know if I can think of anything that he's ever said.
I actually don't know who Ron Johnson's looking for at all, period.
The Oshkosh for the Oshkosh Defense Company. And so it's interesting that if whether it's Tom Nelson, but as putting out a plan, if this could be the first time if you were to win the primary, to have anyone really have that be a core part of their messaging. Because it is a very important part, and it's sad, right? Because the amount of emphasis and priority that these CAFOs get as far as these massive not family farms, and how many family farms close every year in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Is that just the choice that we're making, that like find a new job because they're
Well,
more efficient and they can get it done faster and cheaper and make more money, and that's just the way that we're okay with that? Or are we actually going to try to save this lifestyle for people who've been doing it for generations?
Well, I think I mean, the government has to make it help be like sustainable for them to do it. Like, I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of farmers now, like you got kids growing up who are like, I don't want to do this. And they've been doing that for years now, doing that for years. But I feel like even more today, because like, I don't want to run the family farm anymore. I'm done with, like, it's not what I want to do with my life. And then if they're not making money on top of it, then yeah, it's going to close down. And if the government's doing nothing to help them, then yeah, it's not sustainable and it's not even feasible. It's like maybe there's a way to give, I don't know, like, is there a way the government can give subsidies to small farms that actually make it look like a good business investment for the younger generation coming up, saying like, this is your business. Yeah.
Luke, you just pointed at yourself. What is that?
Luke, just pointing at yourself. Are
You guys mind if I interject?
No,
Like, I don't
go
wanna-
ahead. I mean, if you have insight knowledge on the
Yeah.
farmer experience,
Well, I think that this is an important part, but it's not. I'm not going to claim that I have any insight on family farms here in Wisconsin, except for the fact of what you just brought up. Is that there's ways that we could have the government incentivize these things, and it ties back to the conversation we were having about public school funding. It's a set system where there's only so much money in the pot, and the state government determines who gets to spend that money where. One of the biggest expenditures in the state of Wisconsin is the manufacturing and agricultural tax credit. It has cost the state $1.4 billion over the last decade. It is branded and then messaged as this thing for farmers, and it goes almost exclusively to millionaires.
Yeah.
Republicans in Wisconsin passed this tax that it's a tax cut. It's a manufacturing and agriculture tax credit.
it's basically a tax loophole.
Right. And so it allows really these CAFOs, these other big businesses that you're talking about in agro and manufacturing, to be able to not pay taxes, not pay into that general fund. And there are definitely ways that we could incentivize small family farms instead of these large agro businesses. But it just gets back to, it's something that's allowed to be messaged that way as, oh, it's good for agriculture, even though it's good for millionaires, not family farms. And so really
there is zero job creation requirement to get that tax credit.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You don't
So
have
wait,
to-
Luke, are you telling me that Republicans put together a tax loophole that only benefits millionaires and billionaires? Is that what you're trying to tell me? Because I find that
it's not only, it's just mostly.
It's north of 80%, I believe. Like it's like a majority of that rebate goes to millionaires. But I hate to be the bearer of bad news, Greg. That is at least according to like the Wisconsin Budget Project, I believe. Don't take my
sounds
word.
like the liberal agenda to me.
Well, I mean, socialism for those big businesses, right? They get $1.4 billion over a decade. That sounds like a pretty good deal to me, if you ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say I could never cut it on a farm. I spent one day at a dairy farm in Jefferson County last year. And she's like, yeah, you don't get a day off. The cows need to be milked every day. And like, I'm barely like being able to hold on. It's like, how do I do a 2-hour radio show every day? This is so much work.
You got to milk the news, Kristin. You got to milk the news every day.
All right, this is As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin, Brey. We'll be back after the break.
Hey. Ooh la la, ah wee wee. Ooh la la, ah wee wee. Hey. Ooh la la, ah wee wee. Hey. Ooh la la, ah wee wee. Ooh la la, ah wee.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin, Brey, and Mr. Greg Bach just jamming out, ready for the Run the Jewels concert. Coming
Run
out.
the Jewels and Rage Against the Machine.
Oh, the combo.
Yeah.
Those
And
feel like very different audiences to me. Am I wrong?
oh no, I mean I saw Run the Jewels open for Lorde.
Wow, she's so.
And that's-
funny. I feel like she had that one hit song, and then we never saw her again.
Ooh.
No, I don't mean that as a dig. I mean very much so. Like I feel like I still see her around, but I couldn't name another Lorde song.
Yeah, I went to that show, and when the lights went out and I heard the screaming of like all these 15-year-old girls, I'm like, I am at a sleepover I was not invited to. It was very weird. I left. I was like, we're leaving right now.
Like, this is not my scene.
Yeah.
At all. Speaking of your scene, your comedy scene,
Yeah.
Tell us a little more about the Laughing Tap. It is a independently owned comedy club in Milwaukee.
Located in lovely Walker's Point. We've been open since January of 2020. Took a slight break for something I don't know about. But we reopened back in July. We've been open ever since, and we've been hosting shows every single weekend, including shows on Thursdays and some shows on Sundays as well. Doing open mic on Wednesdays. So if you, the listening public, want to try your hand at comedy, Wednesdays.
You think you're funny, and you've always said I could do that.
Yeah, I'm funnier than that guy. I'm funnier than that guy.
You think I'm funnier than that girl. She's not even funny.
Women aren't even funny. That is a I had to have been in a hole, because when I heard somebody say the idea of like, well, there are people out there who just don't think women are funny. I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? And there's just something that's always been around. I'm like, wait, how come no one told me about this stupid idea? But
you've always thought women are funny.
Well, of course, yeah, because they are. They always have been funny. Period. I mean, that's not even like, I'm not even gonna pat myself on the back for having an original thought there. But yeah, I mean, we are open. If you want to go to laughingtap.com for more information, or milwaukeecomedy.com for all of our shows. We got tons of stuff to offer you.
We also are part of the founding team of one of the oldest comedy festivals. Right? Isn't it?
Yeah. It's one of the longest running comedy festivals in the country. In fact, I think maybe one of the longest running in the world now. We are celebrating our 17th anniversary in October when we have
teenager. That's almost an adult.
Yeah, I know.
Almost an adult.
Get out of my house. Get a job. Do something. Pay your fair share.
What is that?
But yeah, that's going to be the Milwaukee Comedy Festival. That's going to start on October the 2nd. That's a Sunday. It's going to go until October the 9th, which is also a Sunday. So 1 full week of shows. Kristin has been to the Milwaukee Comedy Festival and can tell you it is a dang good time.
It is a blast.
Yeah.
So this is probably a bigger topic than we have time for, but how much do you see through, because we obviously hear the radio show, the videos I do is political comedy, but who do you see come through that does political comedy on stage successfully? And how, especially because it's stuff that can be more topical, but like, who comes through that you feel like really nails political comedy, especially doing it in a place like Wisconsin, Milwaukee, maybe not as much, but where you don't know who your audience is going to be. And so being too partisan or too one-sided, you can lose your audience quickly.
I mean, I think one of the more political comics that we had come through would be Hari Kondabolu would be one. I think that, his unique style is very much like, it's very based in personal, especially now that he's talking about being a father, but definitely still brings listening to that Charlie Hill clip, from the late 70s, that's a very in your face stand-up bit, like,
yeah,
and
for national television, like not a comedy club, like national television.
And Hari has got a very, very specific style, which is very political, but it's also very connective. He's not trying to make anyone feel bad. You got to have an open mind when you're listening to, because he's talking about things that deal with his life, his struggles, the things he's gone through as a citizen of this country, living in this world. And so I would say, like, at the top of my head, I mean, we worked with Liz Winstead, who's a co-creator of the Daily Show, and very, very, very political. But like, as far as people at the club, but as far as people performing at the club itself, I would say Hari is probably that. Yeah.
And do you think the reason it works is because it is tied to his personal experience versus just punchlines about politicians?
I think it works so well is because he's just a fantastic writer, and he's just able to. I mean, he definitely like adds that personal touch to it, but I think him as a writer too, he's just a fantastic writer, and the way he presents the material is almost like, you know, it is like, I mean, all comedy is a monologue essentially, but like his feels like you're watching a show like almost like a one-man show sometimes, but it's just full of all the jokes.
All the jokes. Do you ever dabble in politics in your stand-up, or is it still pretty personal?
Honestly, it's still pretty personal. Like, I've tried doing it here and there, but I've found that a lot of times, like, I've never been able to find that good balance. I tend to just get angry.
You're like, this isn't funny anymore. This is just
I'm just yelling at these people now.
Throwing the stool into the audience.
Yeah, exactly.
You're arrested for a battery.
You know, honestly, I was thinking about that, and it's like I don't. For me, I just like to stand on stage and talk about the things I like to talk about to make them laugh, and then if you are allowed the ability to have more presence, to be more known, it's what you do with that presence that is what. So, like, you know, is what's important to me. So
yeah, that makes sense. Well, where you said laughingtap.com.
laughingtap.com for the club itself. Then you can go to milwaukeecomedy.com to see when we're doing remote shows around the city, as well as stuff at the club. And then mkecomedyfest.com is the website for the Milwaukee Comedy Festival. We just announced our headliner, Lori Kilmartin, will be headlining the October 9th show at Shank Hall. That's going to be really fun. She does a podcast with Jackie Cation, who is a South Milwaukee native. Jackie's awesome as well. We've had Jackie at the club, both great, but Lori will be headlining. So
that's exciting.
Yeah.
And where can people find you?
You can find me on the social medias. I am Greg Bach. I am GREGBACH. I am Greg Bach on all the social medias. Just made it very simple to the point.
Yeah, that's great. Well, you have an easy name to spell, and unlike Brey, and like I have one of those simplest names, Kristin Brey, and people always spell my first name wrong. They spell it with an E, and people pronounce my last name wrong because they think it's Brey. So 3-syllable name, always wrong. So Greg Bach, even easier. Well, Greg, thank you. My second co-host, third day.
Thanks for having me.
Got some texts of people saying they really enjoyed the show already.
Oh, baby.
I think your reenactment of Kenosha Man really
Kenosha man doing whatever he can to Dan. He's a Kenosha man.
Now you just up yourself. I think that's the end of the show now. Chef's kiss.
There you go.
All right. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back tomorrow. This has been As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey.
We